with that, I want to turn it over to Dan to give a little bit of his background. Maybe you'll pick up on some of these themes. Maybe you'll pick up on some other themes.
Yeah, for sure. No, that was good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I get a lot of my entrepreneurial spirit from this guy, so appreciate getting to watch you growing up and doing that. So that definitely got me started into everything. So when I was thinking about a couple topics I could talk about, running ideas through Nate and kind of annoying him with what I could leave you guys with, the two main things that I was thinking was that got me to this point, throwing myself in the fire and being a giver. And I think a lot of times those things don't get short-term results, but in the long term, they usually pay off. And for me, over a 5-year period, they've really paid dividends. So basically, I'm a little nervous right now, throwing myself in the fire. This is my first public speech, so I've thrown myself in the fire countless times the last 5 years. So I'm throwing myself in the fire right now, and we'll see how it goes. So, yeah, a little background. Basketball was always my thing my entire life. Dad built me a half court in the backyard when we were 4, I believe. So would always be out there with my big brother and all of our friends my whole childhood. Through that, the dream was the NBA. Nothing could come in to stop that. My mom and I actually believed I was making the NBA up until, I don't even know, maybe a couple of years ago. But it was that belief. I like to tell people, if you shoot for the NBA, you might not actually make it, but you might end up pretty close. And I think what I do now is pretty close. Whereas if I'd never believed it, I probably wouldn't have ended up even close to where I'm at now. So go through childhood, I'm always an underdog because undersized, so I have to claw through everything I get. Didn't face adversity in the typical sense where, we came from an affluent family, never had to worry about food or any of that, but my adversity was being a scrawny white Jewish kid from Lafayette Hill and having to figure out my way on the basketball court. And a lot of that came from playing with Matt and his friends and just getting that toughness. So, yeah, I had to earn everything in sports was not given. So that was where my adversity came from and really gave me put my head on straight, I guess. So through high school, that's where it was really challenging because I came from a prominent high school called Plymouth Whitemarsh, where we're known for bringing in players from out of town and athletic guys and big strong guys, and I'm a 5'8", 150 pounds, like I said, white Jewish kid from Lafayette Hill. So it's like I got to work 10 times as hard as everybody else. So my summers consisted of mom waking up at 5:30, driving me to the gym, and 3-4 times a day working out, hanging out with friends, maybe 3-4 times the entire summer, because I knew I had to do that to even have an opportunity to play. And a quote that one of my friends, named Mike Latito, actually gave me that stuck with me. He was an upperclassman when I was in high school. He said, "Hard work doesn't always guarantee success. It guarantees you can live with the results." And that stuck with me. So it was like, I can work as hard as I possibly can, and it might not guarantee I'm going to end up starting. In my senior year, I actually was only 6-man. So I never ended up starting with all the work that I put in, but I could live with it because I knew I did everything I could. So fast forward, I was always Division I or bust. I wanted to play at like Duke, we always talked about, or one of the best schools. And when that didn't work out, my big brother was at Penn State, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to be a normal kid for once and get in my comfort zone, I guess, which is the opposite of what I've done the last 5 years. But Penn State was comfortable for me. All my friends were there. My brother was there. So went to Penn State and enjoyed my time the first year or so, and then kind of had an epiphany that I wasn't living my true purpose, I guess, and I needed a change. So for me, I'm a big no regrets guy. So when I came home, I tried out for the Penn State basketball team, and when I didn't make it, I was kind of at a crossroads, like Dad was talking about, like finding your passion and trying to figure out what you want to do. And I would call home frequently, and school was never really my thing, so I would complain to Mom about classes and how I didn't feel like I was learning and didn't feel like it was doing much for me. So we somehow came across this NBA trainer named Drew Hanlon, and he was running this. It was called a Pro Skills Coach Seminar in Crystal Lake, Illinois, and Mom sent me to this, what was that, life psychologist or something like that, to just talk things through. And without hesitation, I told Dad about it. I think he paid over $2,000 to send me out by myself to Crystal Lake, Illinois, and I went out there, and that weekend, we still talk about it to this day, kind of changed everything for me. I was only 19, and everybody else in there was probably in their 30s and 40s, and that was the first time I really threw myself in the fire, I would say. And that was, there's actually probably videos of that. Like Drew called me out because I was the youngest one there, and I don't know if you could hear a little nervousness in my voice now, but when I was talking at Drew's seminar, like you could hear it in my voice, like just how nervous I was and how, like, I guess I was going through a hard time because I didn't know what I was doing in my life. So that happened, and I kind of realized if I can't make the NBA, maybe I can be an NBA trainer. So that kind of started a whole ripple down effect of the last 5 years. And from there, I started posting videos on social media about basketball training. And then COVID hit, and I got home, and my little sister was training. She wanted to play in college at the time, so when I was at home, I started training her, and I started doing Instagram Live ball handling workouts for the kids at home because I was trying to think of unique ways to get the kids active during COVID, and that's kind of the first form of goodwill that being a giver I talked about. This quote from this entrepreneur I look up to, Alex Hormozy. He says, "Goodwill compounds faster than revenue," and I've really seen that, like, by giving and giving and giving without expectation, it ultimately usually comes back in the long run, but you don't expect that. It just kind of happens. So I did free Instagram Live ball handling workouts for 6 weeks, and during that process, my sister was looking to play in college. I was like, you know what, I miss basketball too much. I'm going to go play basketball. So I decided to transfer to Moravian University. It was that's where I met Nate, so it was a big blessing, but it was way out of my comfort zone. I left all my friends. I left my brother. I was the only Jewish kid at Moravian. Like, I didn't know a single person, so big culture shock for me in that sense, but I knew I would regret if I didn't play college basketball. So fast forward, that summer I start running my business out of my backyard, training kids all day, training myself all day. Get to Moravian, it's COVID, so we're wearing masks. We kind of have to follow these weird protocols. And because I worked so hard that previous summer and probably didn't rest enough, I ended up having a stress fracture in my foot. So while we only had 9 games, I missed every game and didn't even get to play a game. So that season goes by. Now it's the off season again, and I'm like, I have to wait another 9 months to play my first college basketball game. If you guys remember, I went to the seminar with Drew Hanlon, and over the course of that 18-month period, I would always bug him and ask him if I could intern for him because he trained all the top guys. So I would make an effort to reach out every month or so, just checking in on him and asking him if I could help him. And one day he posted on his Instagram, like, wheels up to Philly, and I reached out and I said, can I come help you out? And he said, of course, sent me an address to a gym, and I showed up to the gym one day, and it was Mac McClung. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but he just won the NBA Slam Dunk Contest. Nate was actually in the contest with him. But it was Mac McClung and another NBA player named Charles Bassey. And showed up, and from there I helped them for a month straight while running my business, while training myself to be in college for a month. And I helped him out for free, usually, paying my own money. And then I went to LA with him, probably paid $3 or $4 out of my own money. I don't even know if Dad helped me for that one, maybe a little bit. I think we split the car. It was like $1,400. But yeah, so being a giver and not worrying about money and really just going to provide as much value as I possibly could. And from there, I built a relationship with Mac McClung and some other NBA players. And I don't make this too long, but fast forward, I have a good senior basketball season. And then after the season, I was deciding if I wanted to do a 5th year or not, or what I wanted to pursue, because I had the COVID year so I could play another year. And funny story, so Mac and I became close in that month in Philly, but he keeps his circle very tight. So after Philly was over, that 10-month period, I would reach out to him like, good luck in your game tonight, or post his videos on my Instagram, like, just, congratulating him on a good game. And he never responded to me for 10 months. Like, literally over and over again, being persistent. That's one of my main things, being persistent. And one day, I was just like, I'm going to call him. And I called him, and he answered. And I was like, I'll be in LA in April. I was going to this player development conference in April. And he was out there. He's like, let's link up. So I go out there. We get some lunch. And he's like, I'm running my camp in Gate City, Virginia in a month. You can come down, help me run it, and train me. So I was like, okay, let's do it. And he didn't really believe that we would do it. It's an 8-hour drive. And Nate loves the NBA, so Nate kind of was looking at me from afar. He liked what I was doing, and he was like, can I come with you? And I was like, sure. So Nate and I hop in the car, and we drive 8 hours to Gate City, Virginia. And that was kind of the start of Nate and I's relationship in terms of working together. And we went and trained Mac for the weekend, and that was almost 2 years ago now. And since then, we've been Mac's main guys, and becoming essentially NBA trainers at age 21, 22 years old. But, that would have never happened had I not thrown myself in the fire in the beginning at Drew Hanlon's seminar, or had I not been a giver and just gone out of my way to help people without looking for anything in return. So I know that was a lot, and I probably left a lot out, but that's kind of the gist of it. And then now I'm kind of at the stage where 10 months ago I launched my business full time. So hope that wasn't too much, but
Yeah, we'll tell them about the business.
yeah. So we start helping Mac. We're training. I go back for a 5th year. Unfortunately, I sprained my ankle again, so I only played basketball for a year and a half. But 2 out of the 3 years I had season-ending injuries. So, like my friend Mike Latito said, hard work doesn't guarantee success. It guarantees you can live with the results. So I did everything I possibly could, but got to live with the injury. It is out of my control. So from there, I after my 5th year, I was living at home again. I did a little traveling. I helped my friend do camps in Iceland and Italy. Just got to explore the world a little bit. And basketball camps, yeah. I got to do that. And then kind of in a little bit of limbo, trying to figure out what the next step was. And luck of the draw, someone who works with Mom suggested this gym, and I found this gym called AFC Fitness in Ballackinwood, and we've been running our stuff out of there for the last 10 months. So we've been full time. I laid at me, so we turned in the car, and I got my own apartment. They sold our childhood home. So in June, Nate and I were living at home. Nate was sleeping in my brother's room for a month. Nate really burned the boats. He moved an hour and a half from his hometown and really bet on himself and bet on me, and we kind of burned the boats.
What's your stuff that you're running out at the gym?
Yeah. So we burned the boats together. Yeah, we're running our basketball academy for grades K through 12 out of our gym, and that's what we've been building the last 10 months. So there's been a lot of challenges with that. As we can discuss kind of different challenges.
Yeah.
But that's kind of my story, and yeah.
Yeah, and Dan, when you were going through college, all your friends and your brother also, were going through the on-campus recruiting and, trying to figure out about, whether it was Wall Street or a company or whatever. But you really just took a different path. So how did you do that?
Yeah, I think my thing was I viewed my college experience as just getting as many experiences as possible. And I think if you look back at my 4 years, I probably traveled over 30 times, went to 7 or 8 conferences. I was just like, I knew school wasn't for me, but I wanted to play college basketball. So I was like, how am I going to set myself up in the best position when I graduate to be in that position? And I was fortunate enough that you and Mom were willing to financially support me in those things. And I would just seek out an opportunity that seemed like it would be fruitful for me. And I kind of just would jump at it and throw myself in the fire. Like I said, it didn't matter if it was a conference. It didn't matter if it was, learning about cryptocurrency and NFTs and stuff like that. It didn't matter if it was whatever. If it was interesting and I thought it was kind of outside the box, that's what I would do. And yeah, it was a little hard when all my friends were doing interviews and getting internships their junior years like everyone gets and living in big cities. And I was kind of like here one day, here another day, and kind of all over the place. But I think that's a big lesson in being an entrepreneur. You have to be able to stomach the uncertainty. And there's days where you could go months without making a dime. You could go months with losing money, and you could go months with not knowing what your next step is, but you have to be willing to stomach that. And I think also, like, you question it a lot, and that's where an entrepreneur is, like, you just never quit. You keep, sure, you've had a lot of moments where maybe you've had thoughts of quitting or thoughts of, like, maybe it'd be easy if I went to work for somebody else. But, like, those moments where you just don't quit and you just keep going, I think that's what the true beauty in being an entrepreneur is.
Yeah.
But it's really hard.
Right. Well,
That's
what I
the
fall
thing.
back on is you know, whenever and those thoughts would occur to me at times. I mean, I had months where I took home nothing, you
Yeah.
know, no money, right? Because we had to put it all into the business and pay our employees and things like that. And then you're right, you know, then the thought creeps in your head, well, maybe I should go to work for somebody else. But, you know, what I would fall back on is, what do I really want to do? what, you know, if I could go there for a month or 2 months or 6 months or whatever, and, you know, but after that, you know, I feel like I'm going to be right back in the same place that I am, you know, why I'm not there in the first place. So I would just go back to that, and that would be my fuel to keep going.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have the same sort of thing where it's like, I want to be, you know, I love basketball, I love
Yeah.
training, I love, you know.
Well, I think a lot of people in life like to be comfortable.
Mhm.
And for me personally, when I'm comfortable, I'm not at my best. And I think we found that when I was at a young age, when a lot of people would say laying on the couch in a blanket and watching TV is comfortable. But for me growing up, like that's boring to me. And I had a thing growing up where I was always bored. And if I was doing nothing and sitting around, I was bored. I always had to be active and doing something. So for me personally, and it's a self-awareness thing, I just need to be doing something that's challenging me and out of my comfort zone. I think that's why school was hard for me, because school just wasn't really challenging for me. It was kind of, you know, go through the motions and you still get a 3.3 GPA. Like, it was just kind of easy for me, and I needed something that sparked me and got me up in the morning. So I think, you know, the challenge of trying to be an NBA trainer when I'm 20, or the challenge of running a business and having a full-time independent contractor to pay every month, like it's a lot. So but that I think is what gets me going. And yeah, it's.
Yeah, and you had to, I mean, maybe you could have found a program in college, and some of the colleges have like entrepreneurship schools and things like that, but the schools you went to, you know, they had some of that, but you really created your own curriculum.
I was just about to say, I kind of did create my own curriculum. It's funny, if a kid wanted to be an entrepreneur and wanted to go to college, I think I would tell them to do it exactly how I did it. I'm a big, if you guys are familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, he's a serial entrepreneur, so he makes a lot of content, and one thing that he said that stuck with me to this day, that's why I was trying to think of, if there was one thing I could tell you guys that stuck with you, so hopefully I've said some stuff that's been good, but Gary said, if you want to do something and be at the top of your field, go on Instagram or LinkedIn and direct message the top people in your field. Like, literally as simple as that. So Drew Hanlon was the top of the field, and most people, maybe you reach out to the top 100 people and the first 97 say no and number 98 says yes, and then you go work for him. But I literally somehow got number 1 to say yes, and by doing that and going to work for free for him, that was my entrepreneurial classes, essentially, by going to work for free and even sometimes paying to be in those scenarios, like a college course, and going to different conferences and going to learn from Drew Hanlon. And it wasn't just Drew Hanlon, it was any coach or trainer that I could get my hands on. Whenever we traveled, I would direct message people on Instagram and say, hey, I'll come help out, rebound for free, defend for free. So got to train my first NBA player when I was 20 years old, named Marcus Morris, because I direct messaged someone on Instagram and he said, come to this address. And I show up at this, like, leave my family, take an Uber 30 minutes away, and there's this long dirt road with mansions on one side, dirt on the other side. And I walk up and I look in the gym, and it's Marcus and Markieff Morris, and I walk in, and the guy who I direct messaged said, you're going to run the workout today. And that's me as a 20-year-old. I threw myself in the fire, and then I ended up staying for another week, slept on the floor of an apartment that my grandparents, who are realtors, gave me. And just like that kind of epitomizes everything that I feel like I've done, and hopefully other people will do, is like, if you have something that you're passionate about or you want to accomplish, you go to all lengths to do it. So that's kind of, that's kind of.
And your experience with Drew, you know, that inspired me to watching how he was available to you. It wasn't like a lot of time or what, but he made himself available and encouraged you. And, I think about that sometimes myself when, people reach out to me. I always try to make myself available to young law students or lawyers to talk about, to help them think about what would be the next best steps in their career, even if there's no opportunity at my firm. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. But I had that from, one of my mentors at Morgan Lewis, very famous attorney, unfortunately passed away 5 years ago, but his name was Steve Goodman, and, Steve, there was never a meeting he wouldn't take, basically, because he loved that. He loved that idea. And, you could talk to probably 1,000 lawyers in Philadelphia, and they'll all claim Steve Goodman was their mentor, right? So, yeah, there are people like that, and, that's something I try to do myself.
Well, I think that's fascinating because that ties into the being a giver and being, goodwill. I think if you're I'm passionate about just like, and sometimes it comes back to bite me, but I think if you're just a good person and you do for other people, I think it will always come back in some way, shape, or form. I'm a believer in good karma and just, you're going to get taken advantage. There's a book called Give and Take by Adam Grant. I think it's Give and Take, yeah. And it talks about givers, reciprocators, and takers. And in my mind, I'd rather be a giver 10 out of 10 times, because if you're doing something, tit for tat or for reciprocity, you're not really doing it out of the kindness of your heart. And obviously there's that human element of like, if I do something for someone, they're gonna do something for me in return. But it's also like, I think the more good you do for people, just genuinely, like when I did the Instagram live workouts for free for 6 weeks, I really wasn't looking for anything in return. But by doing that, it really helped build my brand and helped get my name out there, and creating that goodwill ultimately launched a business that is now successful today, and those were the building blocks to it. So, yeah. Hope I didn't ramble too much. Hope that was
Great. So awesome.
So I don't know, I think, I don't know if we did a great job of this, but I think it's some of the speeches I've done the best speakers. It was like interactive, so I feel like next time I speak, I want to get the crowd involved as well.
Well, now that's what we do now.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna do now.
Yeah, because but yeah, I don't know if you guys have any takes or just want to make it a discussion, because some of the conferences that I've been to, the reality is you're not going to remember much from what the speaker says, but if you can take literally just one thing, it could change your life. So like, yeah, I don't know if you guys took anything that we want to expand on, or you guys want to add something that could change my life, or yeah.
I mean, I'm inspired by the fact that you kept reaching out to Drew, because I get very much in my head about like pestering somebody. Did you have any feelings about that, or were you like, I'm just gonna keep going until?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I've done that with a lot of people. So with Mac too, I reached out for 10 straight months and he didn't answer me. And I do see what you're saying. It's like the balance between being a stalker almost and like and pestering them. But I don't know. It is. I think I found ways to do it in different ways. So like with Drew, for example, when his player would win the MVP or the scoring title, I would message him and be like, "Hey, congrats on the scoring title." But I wouldn't ask to intern for him. So then every month or so, I would try to find like, "Hey, happy birthday." So every month or so, you kind of.
It is a little stalkerish.
No, but every month or so, you try to just build that relationship. So now, after the 8th or 9th time of saying happy birthday, congrats on the scoring title, congrats on your client signing a $200 million contract. Now, when you ask the intern for him, he's like, "Oh wow, this kid's been complimenting me and giving me love for a while." Whereas a couple times I've reached out to people and been like, "Can I work for you? Can I work for you? Can I work for you?" And they probably didn't respond to me for like 37 messages in a row. And as I got older, I realized that that's probably not the best way to do it. You should try to actually build a relationship, and then you can maybe ask. So, but what are you pestering about?
Well, I'm in theater and comedy. Yeah, I don't know. Like sometimes work like collaborating on something, or like right now I need to like find like a space, like a venue, and I would love to get it for free.
Yeah,
And that's like a tough ask.
for sure.
So I'm trying to get past that, like those feelings of being like, I'm bothering this person.
Well, I don't know if my advice will help or not, but instead of asking, maybe you could spin it on like how could you provide them value first. And I'm sure you've thought of that, but one thing that Nate and I always try to think about is when we want a high level client or we want anything really, our mind always goes to like, we're going to provide free value first and try to go out of our way to, so like say Nate's getting into this freelance videography stuff, like first time he films for somebody, it's rarely for money. He's just going to do it out of goodwill, like we talked about, and do it for free. And more likely than not, he's going to end up getting business from them. So I don't know if there's some way that you could provide them value and then maybe, in return they would give you something. But yeah.
And that lesson, I also saw that lesson in the nonprofit sector because, I work with volunteer with a lot of not-for-profits. And, I won't name any names here, but, one of the professionals who's working for one of these organizations would go to people and say, give me money, and here's what we do, we're here, give me money. And I'm like, no, we can't. You got to show them like why you're valuable,
Yeah.
like why should they give you money, right? So we constantly had that discussion, and I think it applies in that world too. Where you got to show value, and then people are ready to help you in whatever way they can.
Yeah, well, and also adding on to that, it's like, what's the worst that happens? They say no. I mean, I don't know how many theaters there are. You said a theater, right? I don't know how many theaters there are, but how many have you reached out to? Maybe reach out to every single one. I mean, all you need is one yes. That's another big lesson. It's like, had Drew Hanlon said no, I probably messaged over 100 NBA trainers, but he's luckily the top one and said yes to me. But maybe one theater will see that you're a starving, not starving, but like a hungry.
That's why I came for this.
All right, I'm saying just like a hungry guy who wants to make something happen, and maybe someone like, I don't know, like Dad said, he helps young lawyers. Maybe someone would just want to help you out. So, can't hurt to just ask. The worst that happens is say no, and you're back to where you are anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Howie Roseman talks about that, right? The GM for the Eagles, right? I don't know how many letters he wrote to different teams before he got one.
Yeah.
Yes, come work for us for free.
Yeah.
Type of thing. It was like 100 or something, or maybe more.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories like that. I think so. Yeah.
The thing that strikes me, and I don't have a question around this, but I'm thinking is, I think you are going to become someone who speaks to a lot of groups because I'm so
Thank
impressed with you.
I appreciate that.
I know that, like when I met you, I was so impressed with you. But obviously, a piece of your story was having a family who both emotionally and financially could give you the capacity to do things for free for a period of time, and not
Yeah.
very long. I mean, you're independent, much younger than many other people are independent.
Yeah.
But I guess like how different would the journey have been if you had to work for money during all of those times when you were able to do things for free? And like, how would you advise someone who wants to do what you do but doesn't have the support?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I mean, there's a couple ways so I left it out. I did work for money when I got home from COVID, the end of my sophomore year, I started my business out of my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So while I didn't have any expenses, like Dad paid for the car, I had a house to live in, I didn't really pay for gas or food. So I was blessed in that regard. I was making money. So I think it would have been a lot harder because I would have had to pay for my expenses. So I think that was like a huge thing for me, not having any expenses, because then I could just kind of go and do my own thing. But I did make a significant amount of money in college. So I would say, yeah, if you have to pay for your expenses, obviously find a way to try to make money in your field while also doing it for free. But at the same time, it's like when you are so young, that is the time when you can be broke and you don't need to eat. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
You need ramen.
like Nate and I
I didn't
sometimes,
give him dog food.
like Nate, even now, like we're super frugal with it. Like you could spend $60 at Aldi every 2 weeks and you could survive. So it's really just a matter of choices and sacrifice. It's really just a matter of choices and sacrifices. So I would say like even when I was kind of, right at the point where I was getting off of Dad's payroll, like I went to Iceland and Milan. I put $4,000 on my credit card, like on my personal credit card, and I had very, very little money. So it's a notion of also like burning the boats and not having that fear of failure. So what was your question again? I'm sorry.
No, I think as you develop.
I got it.
As you develop this presence, which I think we we are really lucky to be the first people who are getting to watch you do this, because I have
Thank
a
you.
feeling you're gonna do a lot of this over your career. I think incorporating both sort of the appreciation of understanding it's different if you could,
Yeah, yeah.
of that, and
Yeah.
then, and also, yeah, like how it might be different for someone who is, as I think what you said, Neil, was really, like, you have to think about what happens if you fail, and the less scared you are of failure, the more risks you can take.
Mhm.
And if you have, I think about this for myself, and I'm almost 40, but like, knowing my family can be a helpful
Yeah, yeah,
a net if things fail is not something everyone has, but recognizing that is also a piece of being able to take risks.
yeah. No, I think the main thing is living below your means. So like, say you actually have nothing, then you got to live on your friend's couch, or like, so it's literally like that. Those levels. If you're broke, you got to live on your friend's couch. Maybe ask for help or find a job to make some money. If you have a little help, then maybe you could do it there. So I think it all depends on the situation, but depending on the situation, being able to do whatever you possibly can to make it happen. So, like when I was in LA, I did sleep on friends' couches for 3 weeks so that I didn't have to pay for a hotel. I still had to pay for airfare in the car and everything and food, but in my situation, like not wanting to ask dad to pay for a hotel room, so I figured out a way to sleep on friends' couches. So that's kind of, yeah.
And I don't recommend this for everybody, but I'm different than I think maybe, a lot of business people, not all business people. I think that there are uses for debt. Sometimes you're fortunate to have, money in the bank yourself, or you're fortunate to get investors, and those are both great ways to go if you can do them. But sometimes, if you really want to do something and you need to come up with money, sometimes you can, find ways to borrow it, and it's high risk. So you got to make sure you have that extra level of conviction, and you can there are people who obviously get in over their skis, so to speak, where they can't climb out of it, and so you got to be careful. But if you want to fuel your dreams, sometimes that is the way that you need to go. I mean, otherwise you can be asking friends and family too, which is another way to go.
Well, that's along the lines of just betting on yourself. And
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
doesn't just have to be entrepreneurs. I mean, it can be anyone in a corporate setting or anything. It's just, betting on yourself and not, being willing to take that leap of faith. And what's if the worst that happens is you fail and you're back at ground zero. It's I love this quote that stuck with me. I think it would probably stick with some of you. Is failure is just a pivot in the right direction. I think it was Ben Nemtin, I think Mom showed me, he's this speaker. But if you view failure in a different light, then even if you failed and went bankrupt and went broke, it's just a pivot in the right direction, and you're going to learn from that. And then a lot of the most wealthy and successful guys talk about going bankrupt multiple times. Had they been afraid to even try the first time, they would have never went bankrupt, which would have never led them to those lessons and led them to having all the success they're having now.
Yeah, and I think one of the Philly success stories may have.
Michael Rubin. Yeah, he went bankrupt at like 16, right? Or whatever. But had he not gotten out of his comfort zone originally and been afraid to fail, then he wouldn't be where he's at now. So that's the main thing with anything in my life, at least.